Live. Back here on a Monday. Very deliberate. We've been gone for a while with the holidays and because of other stuff. Dave Koken is here. Nice enough to step up on a Monday. We got a lot of good stories to get into. Dave, of course, from Wager Talk, and did a show with Cofield and ESPN Las Vegas, and myself, Steve Cofield, as I'm speaking in third person. All right, Dave, we got a ton to get to. This is really offbeat way to start, but how much of the UNLV North Carolina game did you watch tonight, the basketball game?
I gave up at halftime.
Okay, but you watched the first half, right?
Yeah, first few minutes were exciting. Fantastic.
So, I want to get to the game itself, but as the game went along, something happened in the beginning of the game and then continued in the second half, and that was the announcers. It was very weird. I don't know if you noticed, but the Rebels jump out to this 13-0 lead, and then all of a sudden the ESPN crew, and I know it's not the broadcast team, whoever was producing the game is like, you know what, let's have a guest on. But the guest came on at like the 17-minute mark and was on until like 11 minutes left in the first half. Just on and on and on, like nothing about the game.
This is
Vegas exploded. They were like, what is going on?
Well, okay, I'm used to it because I watched KBO all summer.
Yeah.
And what they did was they kind of had the game, the interview would be the focal point, and the game would just be in the background.
Right.
And so this is what's happening with them not broadcasting on site, doing it from wherever they're located, home, studio, wherever. But they're not there.
Right.
And I guess they're only able to provide the same play-by-play we're watching because they're watching on a monitor as well. I guess that's why they're going to these interviews. But it was cool with KBO, but not with a big college basketball team like North Carolina. Not so much UNLV, but North Carolina especially. Focus on the game.
Yep.
That's what we're there to watch. We're there to watch the game, not the interviews. We're not just killing time in the middle of the night with a KBO broadcast.
Yeah, I thought it was ridiculous. And listen, the UNLV audience and a lot of the less than glamorous teams that are in the Maui Invitational, like they're watching to watch their team. They want to hear about their team, good or bad. And either the producer is afraid to let the guys cover the game. Like, I don't think it's that hard to just, you do your research before the game. You know about both teams. You react to the action. And if there's some dead time or it's a blowout, then you continue to teach folks about the teams. You can certainly have discussions about, hey, where they fall in the national landscape, the rankings, their own conference. It's the beginning of the goddamn season. Do you know how much there is to talk about with college basketball? And it happened again in the second half where the guys just faded off, and it was Roy Philpott, who's a play-by-play guy, and Corey Alexander, the guard, who went to Virginia. Like, we talked to Corey Alexander, who was more of a forward at Arizona, but this was the guard. And then he just starts going, he's talking NBA in the middle of a goddamn college basketball game. And I mean, I think Vegas listeners were frustrated anyway because UNLV was playing like hell at the end of the first half and the second half, but still cover the game.
I don't think it's just UNLV fans. I think it's the majority of fans, especially college basketball. College basketball fans, until the NCAA tournament begins, there's not a lot of casual college basketball viewers.
No.
Okay, these are people. College basketball fans are a different breed. They either are really into it or they don't care about it at all. So your audience is basically really interested in the basketball game and the teams involved. That's what you should be focusing on. Jesus, they've got enough interview shows up, don't they?
Yep. And we're talking to like
cover some games.
You know, with some Roy Williams, former player, I guess, like Porky fucking House or something. I don't know what his name was. I don't know what it was. Porky. I know that. And it just became white noise in the background. I'm like, I want to watch the game. I actually wanted to learn about North Carolina. I wanted to watch what unfolded with UNLV. And as you said, like, you don't need to fill time. You're speaking to your audience, college basketball fans. And here's the other thing. If the guys who were put on the broadcast, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of games every week in college basketball, right? And you see it a lot of times. And we get this in the Mountain West Conference where they'll constantly put a couple of analysts on Mountain West Conference games who really don't cover the Mountain West. So their expertise is less than stellar. Like the message it sends to the audience, if even the guys or women that you put on a broadcast don't really care about college basketball, why should we care? Yeah. They're not even there. They didn't prep hard enough that they can cover the game and actually talk about both teams. It was weird, man. It was really weird.
Yeah, it's. I end up turning off the volume.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I don't care about the interview. I just want to watch the game, so I'll watch the game. Yeah. That's why I like local broadcasts better, to tell you the truth. Way better. Local broadcasts, it's all about the game. They might do a cake interview at halftime or something like that. That's fine at halftime. Perfect at halftime. Rather than going back to the studio, do your interview at halftime. But once the game's going on, want to watch the game, okay? Don't want comments on anything else. Notice on football games, I don't care if it's a blowout or not. College football, the NFL, they don't do nonsense like that. To me, it's kind of insulting the audience.
I think it totally is. And Twitter on the shitter was asking about TV broadcast versus radio. Yeah, it was the TV broadcast. It was ESPN. It was Roy Philpott. It was Corey Alexander. I'm sure they didn't book the Porky guy themselves, so they thrust this interview upon them 4 minutes into the game, which I thought was oddly placed. My thought was, all right, maybe this is going to be a blowout. Then you talk to the guy with 12 minutes left in the game. Now, you may not get to talk to him at all. Big whoop. Then you actually got a good game, and you got the game to break down. It was weird. Raphael says, welcome back, Dave. Took the Tar Heels before the first half, or I guess during. He must have taken the Tar Heels at -4 during the game because I actually
went down 13-0.
Yeah, I got North Carolina at 4.5 when it was 16-3.
There you go.
And obviously it didn't it didn't even make a difference in the end because they wound up winning by 27. And maybe I haven't noticed because I maybe have the sound down a lot on the college football games. I haven't noticed it on UNLV football games, and believe me, the UNLV football games could certainly use an interview, and a lot of times in the second half, they haven't been that great. But I think I agree. Maybe Cameron's onto something here. A lot of times it happens either with mid majors who aren't super successful, or the bottom of the Power Fives where they just run out of stuff to talk about. I don't know. It's funny. The same thing happened. I'll take it to my school. I was watching the Rutgers basketball game on Sunday, I think it was, against Hofstra, and you could tell, I know one of them's a Midwest guy. I'm not sure the background of the other dude. Ben Brust, who played at Wisconsin, was on the game, and he had been on the Rutgers game the game before, but there's a lot of times the announcers are trying to fill. So then the problem in that game was one of the guys was trying to flash his New Jersey, New York knowledge, and it was like, dude, stop. You don't know, you have no idea. And again, like you just said, Dave, 5 minutes ago, you've got a core audience watching the game. When you throw out stuff that's inaccurate about the area, the school, those people are going to know it. It's just, It's a weird time. And I'm going to joke about this at first, but it's just something I noticed. As a TV guy, Dave, as you know I am, not really, but I did the color analysis on I can't remember what game now, right? The opener,
Montana State.
Yeah, the opener game, right? I think you do have different responsibilities when you do these games. I think the easiest thing to do is just do the game, right? Just call the game. Just talk about the game. And actually, after the game against Montana State, and I did it with, Tim Neverett, right? His son,
sure,
Matt, was doing the game with me. And I thought it through. I'm like, I haven't worked with Matt yet. Matt hasn't done a whole lot of UNLV calls. Let's just do the game. I don't need to drift off to, chit chat bullshit about the, 2004 Rebels or talk about Dave Rice or, whatever, Anthony Bennett. Let's just do the game. It's funny. I walked away from the game and I'm like, maybe I should have been a little lighter, should have loosened up. And then after watching these two examples I just brought up, I'm like, you know what? Maybe we're just better off just doing the freaking game. All right.
Yeah. Tell me what I was enjoying the broadcast, even though it was a horrible game where the Rebels were just miserable against Montana State at everything. But I was enjoying the flow of the game and the analysis that you were bringing as to what they were doing wrong, the few things they were doing right, what they need to do to get better. If I'm following a team, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear analysis on that team. And it's only a 2-hour broadcast. I mean, it's not like you're doing 24 hours. It's not like a telethon where you've got to fill with Ed McMahon showing how much money's been raised or something like that. Just do the game. That's what we tuned in to watch.
The biggest thing that bothers me is I think it's lack of prep, and that's where guys fade to when they start talking about the NBA or some other story. Just prep for the game. Just read, especially the team you don't know. Just read up. Montana State, I don't really know Montana State as of 10 days ago. I made sure to go read up. There was a couple of good websites. I looked through the roster, right? I spent probably an hour doing that, reading up, making sure I had pronunciations. They actually had interviews with the coach and the players on Montana State sitting on the front steps of their arena. There was a couple things in there. I never even got to it. I never even got to most of the stuff I got, but make an effort. So I think this goes to, first and foremost, the producers on the game, and especially with former athletes, do your job. This is your realm. Step up and tell the player, this is what's good, this is what's bad, this is what we're looking for. But instead, I think a lot of times these broadcasts are set up and they're like, just go and, learn on the fly. We have no expectations. So, I don't know. It was really weird tonight.
Yeah, I expected on certain broadcasts, and I don't have a problem with Bill Walton did some of the Maui games today in Nashville.
Now he's different.
Right.
Corey Alexander is not Bill Walton. Bill Walton is going to be a freaking lunatic,
right,
and it's going to go off in these tangents. But he's really good. People are used to it. They know it's coming.
And I know it's not going to be. It doesn't matter what game he's doing, even whether it's a Pac-12 game or something like this. I know he's going to be all over the place. That's Walton. You either like him or you don't like him. I kind of enjoy him because he's just kind of wacky. But most guys can't pull that off, and they don't try to. I think the networks, or at least ESPN, is kind of forcing this. I don't even know how to term it, but this.
It was the Wild West.
The game is secondary.
It was the Wild West. It was at one point the analyst on the UNLV game, Corey Alexander, starts telling a story. He's like, someone said this. I don't know who told me this. And he was hoping that the play-by-play guy would remember. He was referencing, some college coach or a player of the past told me this, and he wanted to build on that. And he's like, yeah, but I don't know who told me. Then why would you bring it up? What is going on? The story's not relatable if we don't know who told you.
I don't know. I think that's acceptable now. You can just call, because I know unnamed source pops up recently. It's pops up all the time.
Yeah, but not when you're relaying a story. Here's a great story. I don't know who told me the story, but it's great. Okay,
he got it from a good source.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's address the real elephant in the room. As Twitter on the shitter says, it just feels like Rebel basketball will never be relevant again. I think it will be, but I got to tell you, for this season, they've got to get it together quickly, and it becomes disturbing every year with UNLV basketball when we hear, hey, it's a new group. They got to mesh together. The size of the new group was Otzelberger's choice, right? He wasn't handed this team. He had a team that he could have returned 2 or 3 more guys. He elected to tell them, you know what? You're better off going elsewhere. And so this is a situation he created. And, I was just going to say, I know North Carolina is good. I don't know if North Carolina is good. I think we're going to find out. They're going to play Stanford next. And
I undervalued Stanford tonight, to put it mildly. Yeah. I bet the other side. Yep. Just talk about getting a game completely wrong. And Stanford looks like they've got a better offense than they had a year ago, and they're always going to be tough defensively with Haas. That might be a real good game tomorrow.
Zaire Williams is going to be one of the top 10 freshmen in the country.
He's a one and done. Stanford doesn't get those guys very often.
Nope. He's the highest rated recruit they've ever gotten.
Yep.
Played with Bronny last year at Sierra Canyon.
And he looked great tonight.
Carolina's weird because Roy Williams, and it worked tonight because UNLV has built a team to play small ball, and they just were not aggressive enough on the glass on both ends of the floor, and their defense still wasn't up to snuff. They're getting pushed around. So North Carolina's got 4 legit big guys that can play. But I don't know if that's going to work long range if teams can really play small ball and pull them away and make shots.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how that game goes tomorrow, because Stanford faced a team that was physically very soft tonight in Alabama. Very soft. And that's alarming for Alabama. They're not going to face that type of team tomorrow, so we'll see how it goes. I think that's going to be a tough game to pick a winner in, at least for me.
And on the Rebel side, what are you seeing?
Nothing positive so far, but it's early. It's 2 games. So, I'm not going to write the season off. But Montana State was a disaster. And after the beginning tonight was, they're up 13. They got outscored 40 after that. That's not good. But, get to work and practice and try and figure things out, I guess. I think on paper, they're, middle of the pack, maybe high middle of the pack in the Mountain West. But they'll have to get better than they are right now. But I'm not going to write, 2 games.
No, I'm not. I'm not either. But what I say, what I said earlier is it's got to come together pretty quickly. You're about 6 games short this season versus the norm. You'll probably have some of these Mountain West Conference series canceled. Yep. So it's going to be a shorter season. So they got to get it together. I think they got to get at least 1 win out of this Maui Invitational. When they come back home, they're going to face 2, tough, smaller conference teams, and then it goes right into conference play. Well, you're going to play at Kansas State. They don't look very good, but still, it's a road spot. So I think the ingredients are there with the players. They're small, but if they learn how to play better defense, certainly they have to play better perimeter defense if they're going to play small ball, and they got to make threes. That's what got me going. Like, the play as the game went along got worse and worse, but when they're up 13-0, I actually thought it should have been by the second time out of the game, TV time out of the game. I thought it could have been like 22-5. The Rebels were working well on offense. Yeah. They had wide open shots even after the hot start, and that's when they started getting cold. And it's like, guys, you have a chance to push this like 17, 18, 19. You got to do it. You got to step on North Carolina's throat while they're down.
And when you get cold on offense, you better clamp down on defense.
Yep.
Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow against Alabama, which had a very bad game tonight. Right. Maybe it's an opportunity to get right against a team that doesn't appear to be tough physically and likes to set up the threes. So maybe it'll be a good matchup for them. We'll see.
Yeah, that game's tomorrow night, 6:30 our time. It'll be on ESPN Las Vegas, and after Cofield and Company goes till 6, we'll hand it off to John and Curtis.
And they won't have a bunch of interviews during the game.
Oh, John and Curtis won't. No. They're doing basketball there.
Right.
Yeah. During the home broadcast, we usually have an interview at halftime about once every 3 games. But
I would love to see this. I don't know why they don't do this. I've never figured out why they don't do this. Take one of the broadcast crews and let them do the TV on ESPN. Why not? I think some legal thing or something. I don't know.
I think the notion would be that, if John and Curtis are doing the game, then maybe North Carolina feels like, hey, they're getting a hometown call. But here's the thing: it was an ACC crew that was doing the game, and that clearly felt like a hometown North Carolina call. All they did was talk about North Carolina because neither one of them seemed to read up anything on UNLV.
No, I don't think they. Look,
Corey Alexander at the beginning of the game was joking, but I think sort of serious. He asked Roy Philpott, the play-by-play guy, are they still the running Rebels because you keep calling them Rebels? But it wasn't like he wasn't scolding them. I think he was genuinely curious if they had changed their nickname. I'm like, this. What are we doing here?
Well, see, here's the thing. It's tough to compare it to you. I worked with you for a bunch of years, and you are one of the most prepared people I've ever worked with at anything. Most people aren't going to be at that level, but I don't think the preparation was good at all for the UNLV broadcast tonight, nor has it been for several of these games. And this is where you really find out who's doing their work and who isn't, because when these games are being broadcast on site, they're provided with so much information. the host school for games is going to provide you with printout after printout after printout. You're going to have everything you ever wanted to know and more about the teams involved. So you've got all kinds of things to refer to. These guys are at home now or someplace that's not on site. They've got to do more of the work themselves. And if they're not doing it, it really shows.
Yeah, I forgot about this. Jim Jamma points out that they were calling them running rebels.
Yeah.
This just sounds like whiny UNLV fans and viewers, but it's really not. It was the whole thing. It was during the game when you get that much reaction on a 27-point game from fans who are like, "Man, can we just watch the game? Can you know something about UNLV? Come on."
It's kind of like I'll equate it to this. We live in Nevada. That's the way it's pronounced here. Those on the air elsewhere should know that. I'm not talking about the politicians. They're not broadcasters. But when I hear broadcasters refer to it as Nevada, it's like, you haven't, do a little research, minimal research as to how the name of the state is pronounced. And as far as the Rebels are concerned, it's never, ever been the Running Rebels. It's always been Running Rebels. If you don't want to use the running anymore, okay, they're not really the Running Rebels of years past, but it's not the Running Rebels. And I know that might seem like nitpicking, but it really isn't. Not when you're on the broadcast team. You got to know that stuff.
Let's see. Just to answer a couple questions earlier. This one just came in on the on site with the announcers. I'm not sure. I know ESPN on at least in other realms has prohibited a lot of their talent from being at events and traveling to events, but I don't know what the deal is with college basketball. It's also, let's be honest, well, I was going to say it's a budget thing, but I'm pretty sure ESPN still has a Charlotte headquarters. So I don't know. Part of it could be the fear of COVID and testing, and that, they would never want to have the announcers, if there's two announcing pairs, those guys turn out to freaking be a COVID spreader, patient one at a tournament. So I think they're trying to be extra careful. I
have no problem with that. Yeah. By the way, speaking of, I just noticed this. We've got a Cofield and a Kogan. So this wouldn't be a co-video. Oh,
are we co-vidiots? As people like to say. Let's see. There were two other points I saw here. I don't know what they do with radio checks for broadcasters or TV checks. You're talking about like an air check. I don't know what they do there. I think Brady was asking if the season goes down the toilet, is their class going to blow up? Probably not. They'd have to be a disaster. And, fact is the letters are signed. So if UNLV and OTS want to be like, sorry, you signed a letter, you knew what you were signing up for. We're rebuilding. You re-recruit them. Hey, you're going to save the team. Look at the other guys we can build around. You can still come on board. Someone was asking earlier about burning the bridge with Stacey Augmon. If my truth, I don't know why I'm saying my truthful opinion.
I think his wife might qualify as having the bridge burned.
I think
he wasn't very happy.
The snubbing of Augmon, as it turns out, while it was really cool having him on the staff as an assistant, I don't think he's a head coach. And if you noticed, he hasn't got a head coach offer, to my knowledge, anywhere else. And UNLV doesn't owe him if he's not head coach material. And he was never really a super vocal guy when he was on the staff. And then all of a sudden, when the interim job opened and then the job was permanently open, it's like, well, now you want to be a top candidate? I mean, you had all these years to sort of be one of the loud voices on the staff. And believe me, there were loud voices on the Dave Rice staff. I mean, UNLV didn't hire Augmon, and no one else has. So, not to be mean, but those are the facts.
No, not everybody's a head coach. It's a tough job. And a lot of times, great players are not good head coaches because they were completely dedicated beyond all normal levels when they played.
Yeah.
And they don't understand why everybody else isn't like them in terms of their work ethic. That's something that goes back to, I learned that when Ted Williams was managing
The Senators
Well, he just
and
didn't.
the Rangers. No,
Yeah, he didn't understand why the players weren't as dedicated to learning, to spending hour upon hour upon hour on perfecting their swing like he did. Well, because not everybody's built this, not everybody's wired like superstars. I mean, those guys are a completely different breed. I always felt that's why Michael Jordan, forget about it as a coach.
Yeah,
because Michael Jordan, I mean, what he, and I don't think LeBron James will be any good if he wants to coach afterwards. I don't think he'll be any good at it because their work ethic is just blows away most normal people, and that includes other professionals.
yeah. Someone's saying how long is the leash for does DRF give Otzelberger? I mean, he's fine. He had a strong close last year. It's her guy, and he signed to a 5-year deal with escalators that go from like 1.2 million to 1.6, and same thing with Arroyo. Arroyo will be around. Right. He'll have to be absolutely dreadful to go bye-bye after 3, and I think he's got 4, and he should have 4. And Otzelberger,
the guy can coach. Okay, we know.
I think he can coach. I still think they need to deliver on a top 5 finish in the Mountain West Conference this year. I'm not saying he's going anywhere, but that would be disappointing after what happened in the second half of last year. Like, there has to be the next step taken. And again, I will point out, this is the team he wanted. People are going to laugh at this, but he moved on guys like Jay Green. And while Jay Green is not a skilled offensive player, Jay Green actually played defense. And Jay Green was a key in staying competitive and beating San Diego State. And the other one, I don't think he's a great player, and he's certainly a volume shooter over, being an efficient guy, but I'm sure if they wanted Amari Hardy back, he would have come back. I think it was a mutual parting, but Amari Hardy's he's a nice player, and now he's at Oregon. They wanted to move on from him, so they put their eggs in the basket of David Jenkins, and so far David has not played well, has not acclimated to the step up.
Brady's comment, a question, in the world of hypotheticals, if UNLV paid Lon, where is the program at today? There was no way that UNLV could match what Oklahoma was offering.
That's actually, you know what, Dave? I'll jump in because that was a narrative around his loss. From what I've heard, he would have stayed for less, but UNLV wanted to move on Lon Kruger. They thought it had gotten a bit stale, which looking back on now, you're like, oh my God.
That's ridiculous. So
they could have pushed it up. They could have pushed it. It was live and good. They could have pushed his money up to probably 1.6 or 1.7 at the time. He got $2.2 million from Oklahoma. From what I've heard, they could have kept him around, and they were ready to move on. They had their eye on some other guys. It wasn't like they were dissatisfied. They thought it had kind of plateaued, which now you think about it, you're like, oh, my God, that was a plateau?
That was a pretty good plateau. No, what I had heard was that Oklahoma was just going to keep offering whatever UNLV did, Oklahoma was going to top it. But we'll never know. But we've got Kevin on the staff now, so there's some Kruger back in town. And look, it's 2 games. They might start off 0-5.
Yeah,
I mean that's the reality of it. But I'm more interested to see how they develop during the course of the season.
Yeah, and there's a little chance that Desiree is getting fired anytime soon. The school likes her. The AD position has been a revolving door for years. That's one of the biggest problems at UNLV, being more consistent at the high-end sports. And she manages a good athletic department in terms of, getting younger, getting more aggressive, success of the Olympic teams, as you would call them, the non-revenue sports. So she's fine.
Well, and I'll also throw this in. I think schools will be more reluctant to part ways with female athletic directors than male athletic directors. Yep. It's as simple as that. And
buyout money, this ain't the Power 5.
No.
So, this ain't Auburn with Gus Malzahn every goddamn year. They're like, what's a buyout? $19 million? Yeah, we'll do it. All these SEC football coaches, you can't do that. And especially now. You know what revenue streams or revenue projections, budgets are going to look like for the next 5 years?
Huh.
No one's going anywhere. Like, you're going to have to really be terrible to lose your job. So, all right. I wanted to hit Monday Night Football. I read this probably 500 times tonight. about the Eagles and the Seahawks. That was not a bad beat. I know it seems like a bad beat, but Dave, if you bet Seattle at 6 or 6.5, you got what you deserved.
Well, especially at 6.5. Don't bet bad numbers.
Yep, and explain what a bad number is.
A bad number is taking the worst of the line. Yep. If there were 5.5s and 6 out there, and it was 6 was the most common number. It got to 6.5. This is the problem I have with advocates of following sharp money. Now, it didn't come into play in this game because that was public money on Seattle. But a lot of times you'll see guys that follow the sharp money. Well, that's okay if you get the same number as the sharps get.
Yeah.
But you almost never do.
Right.
You end up taking the worst of it. And if you continuously accept the worst of the number, you'll lose in the long run.
Yep.
It's tough enough to beat this stuff getting the best numbers. If you intentionally take the worst of it, you're going to lose. Now, certainly the ending of the game tonight was very unfortunate.
It was weird.
I mean, you get a batted ball for a touchdown, and then they went for 2 because the analytics say go for 2 in that situation, and that was a Hail Mary as well, and it got completed. So, I mean, it's a tough loss, but if you set yourself up for bad beats, you can't really complain about them.
I'll say I think the Chargers was a bad beat because I don't know what the fuck was going on at the end of the game. What was Anthony Lynn trying to do?
I don't know what Anthony Lynn's trying to do on a weekly basis.
I was a backer of Anthony Lynn until the last couple of weeks. Yesterday was it was ridiculous. They get a deep pass, inside the 5-yard line, and then I don't think they knew what they were going to run, and it looked like on the final play, which was a QB keeper sneak from the 3, that the offensive linemen were pass blocking. Like you could see both of the tackles start shuffling back and getting to the edge, and you're like, forward, run. And they ran it on first down too. They're at the 3-yard line. The clock is ticking. I think there's no timeouts. They ran on first down too. Like, what happened here? And they were what were they getting? 5.5, 27-17. They weren't going to win the game, but come on, try to score a touchdown.
I don't know if Anthony Lynn might get another year because of COVID. Otherwise, I think they'd be shopping for a new coach right now.
I think he's done.
I have a feeling you're right.
I don't think it's
time to move on.
Outside of Herbert, that's a team of now because you've given out big contracts to Bosa. You got to make a decision on Ingram.
It's not a great job. It's interesting that people are talking right now about the best jobs that are going to open up.
Yeah.
And everybody puts the Jets at the bottom. I think the Jets actually might be the best job out there. Their organization as it stands right now is a joke, but they're going to do well. Miami's going to do well, although their job's not opening up. But Houston, to me, is a job. To me, that's a bad job.
Why?
Because the Texans have O'Brien traded away a vault of draft choices. I don't know how they're going to get better.
What are the do I have all the open jobs right now? What am I missing?
You put the Jets on there. I think you can probably put the Bears on there too. He's not going to be back. So Bears, Texans, Jets is an inevitability. The Falcons and Lions are already open. Anybody else? I
mean, there's speculation there could be.
Think of any definites.
6 other jobs open.
Oh, Jaguars. Now the Jaguars are pretty young, so there's some upside with the Jaguars, and they're going to have the 2nd pick overall in all likelihood, which means they'll get a new quarterback. That might not see the Jaguars to me is not a terrible job.
See, I like what Joe did here though, because Joe's saying Jax is the best job, but he's taking into account a lot of things. I think the Texans. I agree with you. I actually think the Texans is the worst job. And I'll say what I said 2 months ago when they dumped O'Brien. It's also the worst job for any African American candidate. Doesn't want any part of the Texans. None. The McNair kids so far are acting just like Dad Bob, who died, right? Remember Bob McNair, with all the protest stuff a couple years ago, said we can't let the inmates run the asylum. Then we had a PR person, like one of the NFL PR people of the year a couple of years ago, she gets blown out because I guess they didn't like her tweets about the election. I don't want any part of that bullshit, especially if I'm Eric Bieniemy. No way, because the Texans hire a black coach. That I could see that being Arizona all over again, or Denver, where
I think Bieniemy
Steve Wilkes got blown out after 1 year.
I think he's in Chicago or Detroit.
Bieniemy?
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm not sure he's anywhere, but that's a story to follow.
Got to get a job. There's just too much support for him to get a job, and he's done a great job as an assistant.
Yeah, I think there are reasons, from the past as to why he hasn't gotten a job to this point, and I'm not sure that the league's ready to move on from that. So,
what does Pritch think? Because he's pretty close with Eric.
I can't remember. I'll be honest. I don't remember him pitching like a really strong endorsement, but he might have. He may have changed his mind. So I don't want to speak for Pritch. Well,
all I can say is I think he at this point has earned an opportunity to be a head coach based on his success as an assistant. I'll throw a name out. I threw it out yesterday on Twitter. Maybe he's still a couple of years away. Somebody's going to hire Steve Belichick soon enough. Well, I mean, it's almost a no-brainer, right? Yeah. Because you get Belichick, you probably get the old man too, because he's not gonna stay in the job that much longer in New England. I think he'll retire soon. And it's a Belichick. And by the way, he's already moved around within the organization, coaching different positions. So he's getting, he's clearly being bred to be a head coach. Now, maybe he's being bred to be the head coach that replaces his dad in New England. I don't know, but he's going to be a head coach within 5 years tops. So you wonder if somebody's going to get out in front and say, let's take him on now. Let's get a Belichick to run this organization. Could happen sooner.
So like Joe says, it might be a little quick for Joe Brady, but he is going to be a candidate. He's 30, but we know the league's a copycat league, so they're always looking for the next LaFleur or Lil Shanny or McVay. I might agree with treason. The only thing holding me back is Spanos, but
yeah,
I think Telesco is a good GM. I think he's a guy who can draft talent and he can draft depth. And you have Justin Herbert. You have Justin Herbert, 22 years old. If he stays healthy, you might have Justin Herbert for the next 12 to 14 years. A Rivers run, but you actually win. He's good.
You better learn to not take as many big hits.
Yeah.
He's a little too physical for his own good right now.
I want to be somewhere where I've got a quarterback, I've got a GM that I can work with. I also don't want to go somewhere and be fucking tortured every game by the local media and fans, and that's why the Jets job is a really hard job, because it's just constant. It's constant ball busting. If you achieve, it's great.
Well, but the thing is, and I guess I get this. I mean, they haven't won. They haven't even been to a Super Bowl, have they, since Namath?
Nope.
Well, I mean, it's 50 years. You got to write the bitch after 50 years. And the organization's been run very poorly.
No, it's not. I'm not saying you don't get criticized. It's just, it's such a competitive media market, and the jobs and the outlets are actually dwindling, so they're getting more and more nasty.
Yep.
It's a tough place, man. You gotta have a certain personality to deal with the media.
Well, you know that going in when it's New York or Boston,
but not every and Philly. Not every guy's capable of handling that, right? Not every guy can do it.
No, clearly not.
Yeah.
Both as managers, coaches, and even players. Who I've seen players who were really good players in different sports, and they end up in one of those cities, and it's like the roof caved in. They just couldn't handle the pressure.
Let's talk about the other elephant in the room in terms of stories out of the Monday Night Football game. It's funny. Colin Cowherd, if you ever watch FS1 games, they have a promo running, right, with him and Taylor, and it's all clipped up. And at one point, God, I can't remember the whole line. Now I'm acting like the announcer on the North Carolina game, but he throws out there at the end of things you have to have, like don't buy cheap toilet paper. I forget the other one. And then he goes, quarterbacks are always worth the money. You can give top 5 quarterback money to the wrong guy, and then you're screwed for at least a couple of years. And
or if you draft the wrong guy.
No, but it's the second contract that can potentially screw you. If you pay a guy 22, 25, 27, 30, 32 million dollars and he's not really a top 5 guy, you're screwed. And we've got multiple examples of this, Dave. Let's start with what we saw again tonight. Carson Wentz was mediocre at best against the Seahawks defense,
which is on pace to be the worst pass defense in the history of the NFL.
Yep.
Looked okay tonight.
What
for that last play?
What is the rush to sign a guy like Carson Wentz or a guy like Jared Goff? These contracts are terrible.
Wentz is simply not well, and there was maybe no way to know this, but Wentz apparently is never going to be the same guy he was before he got hurt.
All right. I will accept that defense to a certain extent that, hey, they got a bad break because he got hurt. But they're crushed for a while because they can't just dump him.
Oh, no.
They got a high cap number for, I think, the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But think about it. Wentz, Jared Goff, Jimmy G, right? All terrible deals and long-term deals. Now, the Niners built it so the money was on the front end so they could finally get out of it. But that whole point that, like, hey, when a guy starts off well, he's got a couple of years under the belt, you better lock him up. Like, no, you can wait until before the 5th year. And not every guy is worth 28, 32, 35 million. There's a gap. Am I missing someone? Rodgers and Russell Wilson and Mahomes. Who am I missing? Who's another guy? Who's another guy who deserves north of $30 million?
I'm trying to think.
I'm probably missing someone awesome.
There's very few.
It ain't, folks. It ain't Dak, and it ain't Dak right now. No, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure it was Dak. I'm not sure it was Dak before this.
It's not the guy in Arizona who I like, but he's going to get killed out there.
Yeah.
Eventually, I mean, he's just his height, his size is going to work against him. I hope it never happens. But
Dave, you got time. Like just this rush. Joe with Watson, I'm not sure yet. Lamar Jackson, absolutely not.
No. With each passing year, I expect Lamar Jackson's legs to be a little less effective.
Mm-hmm. And listen, I'm not saying
he's just not very good at the other stuff.
And I'm not saying with these guys that they're like, they're $8 million a year quarterbacks. But
they're not backups. They're good quarterbacks. But
there's a freaking group up top that are monsters. And then there's other guys who, should probably make $18 to $24 million. Well, when they're asking for 35, it's like, no. Everyone is not Rodgers or Mahomes. I mean, someone put in Breeze. I mean, he's not there now. Brady's not there now.
Breeze is a freak. He really is. I mean, for a guy that size to have that, at least Brady's a big dude, but Breeze he's a little guy by NFL standards. And for him to have the career he's had, it's just amazing to me.
Let's see.
Part of it is, I think, recognizing the guys who are true leaders on the team. And that's because that's part of it. So identifying the guys who can hold it together, even when they're not playing at their best, those are the guys you want. It's tough to find. They're not easy to find.
Just to go back to Watson, if Deshaun Watson were truly a top 5 guy, shouldn't he be expected to win a few more games in Houston this year? Do top 5
guy?
Do top 5? Well, we're talking about that next level. Do top 5 guys ever go, less than 8-8, 7-9?
They can. It's possible if the team is really bad around them.
All right.
But no, and I'm not knocking Watson.
No.
Okay, he's a good quarterback. He isn't a great quarterback in the NFL. There's only a few great quarterbacks in the NFL. We might be seeing the rookie class that's out there right now looks like it might produce one. I don't know who it's going to be for sure, but as good as some of these young guys have looked, my guess is that maybe one will turn out to be Hall of Fame level. And whereas this list that we've got up here, Wilson, Rodgers, Mahomes, those guys are going to the Hall of Fame. I don't, at this point, Watson doesn't look to me like a very good quarterback, but not Hall of Fame level. He's kind of like Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is not a Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
Right.
He's been a really good quarterback for a lot of years, but I don't think he's at that ultimate level. Those guys are really tough to find. I think Trevor Lawrence could be one. He's got every tool, but he hasn't proven it yet in the NFL. We'll find out next year, and he's going to be on a really bad team too, so we'll see how that impacts him.
Looking back at Aaron Rodgers, and he had a couple of years where obviously he didn't play at the beginning when Favre was around, and then he had a couple of seasons he got severely injured. But even with those years, his team has had a winning record in 12 or 13 seasons.
Yep.
That's what.
And he's the reason why.
If the number, I mean, in a lot of years, yes. In a lot of years, yeah, absolutely. 12 of 13 years with a winning record. Like, I want to see Watson at that level. I want to see Dak at that level. Like, there are times you have to carry your freaking team, and I don't want to hear about injuries or, hey, we drafted poorly. He's not surrounded by exactly what he needs. The greats win. Bottom line.
There's the other guy we left out of that mix, Roethlisberger.
I
think Roethlisberger's been a great quarterback, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer. And there have been some years where this team was really ordinary, and I think he was the difference that got him to the playoffs.
Right. So, again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, the Wentz deal, the Goff deal, disasters. Cousins was a short-term deal, and they elected to bring him back for a fourth year. So I don't think it was a great deal, but at least it pointed the Vikings in the right direction. But there's a lot of bad quarterback deals and teams that just freaking panic. It's stupid. I mean, you look around the league. There will be quarterbacks available. Now they're not going to be Aaron Rodgers. They're not going to be your franchise guy for 5 years. But can Teddy Bridgewater be your bridge and make $17 million a year for 3 years? Can Jameis Winston be your bridge? I think he can, but right now he's not playing. He's making $1 million. There are going to be guys out there who can fill instead of freaking handing out an $80 million bonus and paying a guy $30 million because you're like, well, who else do we have?
And guys
you
like
buy in at $30 million for the guy that you have.
And if you mention a Bridgewater, you surround him with good talent, and you can go a long way. You can be a serious contender. He's good enough to do that. You don't have to have a great quarterback to contend, but you've got to have a good, reliable quarterback. And even those guys are not that easy to find.
Yeah. And on CJ Cart's fan point on Goff, he's a disaster now because of the money. Remember, when he made the Super Bowl, you can deal with a guy making whatever he was making at the time, $800,000 to $2 million a year. Once he goes to 33, then he's got to be Aaron Rodgers. He's got to be a guy who can carry his freaking team. And there are times when you have to baby the offense so much with Jared Goff.
He's actually regressed since the Super Bowl season. I mean, he was brilliant that year. And looked like, okay, his rookie year was horrible, but then he improved. Unfortunately, that might have been the plateau. That one's tough, though, because he did look so good that year. It's like, well, he's figured everything out, and he's going to be great from here on in, and it's just not happening. Sometimes you just get the evaluation wrong.
Yeah, not good. Not good for the Eagles. They're going to have to figure that out. And the Rams are going to have to be really good at talent evaluation and getting young players, and I think they've been pretty solid this year, so they're having a little better season than I thought they would.
I would agree with that. I thought the Rams would be the last place team in that division this year, and they've been better than I thought.
All right, Dave. One of the stories of the weekend was Vanderbilt and their female kicker.
Yep.
And you sent out a tweet earlier. I've seen people talking about it all day long. Again, I feel like that term toxic masculinity is being fired out by some female journalist. This is an interesting one. It's a cool story. It's a cool story on the front end that, hey, there are very few women who've played Division I football. She's getting a chance to play in the SEC. But I thought what happened with all SEC honors of the week, the last couple of days, I don't know, man. I'm uneasy about it. And this isn't like you hate women. No. Stop. Let's be intelligent. Let's listen to Dave's point. Let's have a conversation here instead of immediately going into this offensive position where you just brand every guy who's got something that's not completely in line with what you're saying. You brand them toxic.
Or making a judgment as to their political affiliation, which was kind of comical.
They did it with you?
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden, I became you're obviously a Trump 2020 guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Al Bernstein, by the way, agreed with me, and Al is the most liberal person I've ever met.
And let me tell you, Al is very pro-female sports. Yes. I remember Al driving me nuts in the past with some of his takes. Al is very pro-female sports.
Well, so am I. I mean, I want to see them get great opportunities as well. But this is what I tweeted. Sarah Fuller being named co-SEC Player of the Week is simply patronizing. She kicked off in the second half. Wonderful she's on the team. Bestowing this honor is ridiculous, makes it a participation trophy. That's an insult to a competitor. And that's the key comment is if she earned a roster spot with her ability to kick the football, that's fine. But she did absolutely nothing to warrant being named a co-player of the week in the SEC. She was apparently told to squib kick. She did that. Okay, good. That's a player of the week. She got that award for showing up. I think participation trophies are great for like Special Olympics and things like that. It's a little different mentality, obviously. For anybody else, you should be insulted for getting a trophy when you accomplished absolutely nothing. My entire trophy collection consisted of some bowling trophies. Okay, I won those. I was a pretty good bowler. No, I was. And I once, okay, but I won those. I won those. I was never any good or good enough at anything else to win a trophy. If they'd have given me one for showing up, I'd have thrown it in the garbage. What the fuck does it signify? That I showed up? I mean, if you're a competitor, and I'm very competitive, if I enter a handicapping contest, I enter it to win. Okay, I'm not there to finish third. I want to win. I'm competitive at everything. I don't want a reward when I did nothing to earn that reward. I think the giving her the SEC Co-Player of the Week is a flat-out insult to every woman who plays sports competitively. It's an insult. They're looking at it as an honor, being woke or whatever. To me, it's an insult. It's an insult to her. It's an insult to any female who competes. Because she did nothing to earn that award.
And you got a rash of crap for that, huh?
No. Oh, no. It's widespread agreement. I would say of the last I checked, let's see. Let me go to it. It's got 832 likes, 114 retweets with comments, 71 whatevers. And only a couple of comments that were negative.
Are you sure you're not being validated by a bunch of pigs who hate women and don't want women involved in sport?
I think most people, I really do feel most people are in agreement on this. I think most, and this was something, and believe me, I know at least of the people I'm familiar with who follow me, some were conservatives who agreed with me, and a lot of them were liberals who also agreed with me. There seems to be this division of thought that this is something, liberals will all support this. No, they won't. Especially not liberals who have been involved in competition. And Al's a perfect example of that. Al boxed before he got into broadcasting. He did some boxing. He has been around the competition all his life. So I understand why he agreed with me completely on this. And it's not, to me, this is one where, excuse me, most left and right should agree that this was complete patronization and shame on the SEC for doing this. It's actually a complete insult to what she accomplished by just making the team.
I'd make the case that you're actually sticking up for females in sports, that you want the same standard applied across the board. I'll give you an example in our world. I will not have, and we have a lot of females as guests. I like having females on because I want, I'll just say a perspective because all women don't have the same perspective. But I'm not going to have any female guest on who aren't going to fight back, aren't going to argue, aren't going to, blend into the show. And I remember when Chrissy was around, there was a woman, I never got her name, but a listener who thought I was mean to Chrissy all the time and, going after her. And I'm like, yeah, just like everyone else on the show. And Chrissy became, I'll call it a good character, but she became a good third, a good second, because she did fight back. She would, stick to an argument. Those are the same standards the rest of the staff has on the show. Why would you have a third or fourth person on the show where you have to soften things in the discussion? It's going to be obvious to the audience. And the funny thing is, Chrissy was livid that this woman was defending her. She thought she was defending her. She's like, no. She's like, I don't have any problem with the way the discussions go. That's the way it has to be. I like it.
I've never altered this stance. This goes all the way back to when Bobby Riggs played Billie Jean King in a tennis match. Oh, Billie Jean beat the guy. No, she didn't, because the rules were different. Okay, she got to play the doubles court.
Right.
He had to play the singles court. And by the way, he was 30 years older than she was. I mean, that's bullshit. She didn't win anything. And believe me, Billie Jean King was one of the best female tennis players of all time. She was great. To me, that was, and people, oh, she won. No, she didn't. There are certain things where you can call it tunnel vision or just being stubborn, but I'm adamant about this. And there was one of the news shows last night did something on it, and I couldn't have agreed more. And it's the most conservative show, and I'm not conservative, okay? But they were making the case, which I completely agree with, that LGBTQ, I get the, I'm all in favor of it.
You're close enough, yeah.
Okay, but I am completely against men who want to identify as women getting to compete in women's sports. You can identify as a woman, that's fine, and I'll support every right you have in terms of actual rights, but you are absolutely screwing true females. Yeah. Sorry, but there is a difference, an anatomical difference. It's not fair to the girls when a guy who now identifies as a girl is competing against them. Should not ever happen. Should not be allowed. Who's that MMA guy who's now transgender? Just wait. I forget her name.
Fallon Fox.
Yeah. Okay. She had such a physical advantage over natural females. It was ridiculous. She had no business fighting females. Totally unfair to the females. There's certain things where our woke culture, in an effort to be fair, gets completely unfair. To me, this lady getting the SEC co-player of the week is a good example of it. She doesn't deserve it, and it absolutely cheapens what she actually accomplished by making the roster. And by the way,
it's a major accomplishment, and no one's denying that. It's very cool, but give her the award when she has a good week, and it's something super impressive. The front end is impressive. The fact that she's doing it is impressive, but and the other thing to keep in mind.
By the way, why is it just Power 5? Katie Denida made the New Mexico team years ago. She did not have a good kick in her one bowl appearance at New Mexico. It was an extra point that was quite wide of the mark. But she transferred to another school the next year, and she was successful kicking field goals in men's football games. That is something that, and that's kind of been what it doesn't exist now because it wasn't a Power 5 conference. That's ludicrous. A field goal is a field goal. It doesn't matter what conference you're playing in.
Yeah, I can only imagine some of the traditionalists in the SEC and what they'd be saying, after this award is handed out. That's the insulting part. You gave them their red meat, where they're basically like, give a little pat on the head to Sarah Fuller and go, "Good job, sweetie. Here's your award. We're glad you're here." And snickering behind the scenes,
Yeah.
That's the sad part. But I hope she sticks it out. I hope she can make some kicks. I hope she's a good player. It's cool, and especially at that position.
Yeah.
I mean, the Vanderbilt coaches said they brought over some of the, they brought over some dudes who played soccer in the past, and they said it was basically a joke. And people have talked about, who is it, Carly Lloyd, who's on the U.S. women's soccer team, and she was brought into like 3 or 4 different NFL camps, and they were like, man, she's pretty good.
Yeah.
She doesn't want. I don't think she wants to do it, or they don't have room for her. She's also, I think, 39 years old now. But yeah, she's pretty good. So they'll eventually be. There'll be a female. In a sport like football that's so freaking physical, it's going to be tough to play some of the other positions. But there could be a kicker. There certainly could be a kicker, a full-time kicker that'll get a couple of years on a male football team, men's football team down the road.
I think that'd be awesome. But you got to earn the job, and just not get a pat on the back for doing nothing.
All right, be careful, man. Be careful. There's always the minefield. You and your toxic masculinity and your right-wingerness, you Trumper.
Yeah.
That is funny.
There are some things where we do agree. Liberals and conservatives,
of course,
do agree. Be nice to focus more on some of those things. Maybe it could lead to other avenues getting paved better.
Right. Actually having intelligent discussions instead of running to your corner and then just doing everything to win your stance.
Well, yeah.
Right? It's ridiculous. Hey, let's close on this. I want to do a quick look ahead to a couple of college football lines.
All right.
Since the numbers will change throughout the week. Our hometown Rebels, can they compete at all here? A short week. Well, not really because they played Friday, but Boise off a canceled game on Saturday is going to be freaking spitting mad. It's 27.
Boise will win by whatever they want to win by.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean they'll cover because we just saw a game where they played at Hawaii.
Yep.
And they were up a lot in that game and just kind of coasted in the fourth quarter. And sometimes that happens with teams that don't have a lot to play for. Boise doesn't have a lot to play for. Their game against BYU, and granted, everything went wrong. They ended up with a third-string quarterback on the field. And whatever chance they had to compete with BYU kind of disappeared at that point. But they don't really have much to play for.
Well, they can still play. They can still play for the conference championship.
Well, yeah, but all they need to do is win games. They don't need to win them by 40.
Right. And they've got good teams from the West who are having seasons above expectations. So there'll be something good there.
But they're out of the group of 5.
We don't have a whole. No, they have no shot. No. We don't have a whole lot of games left. But I was actually thinking of this from a handicapping standpoint. Do you think the teams that have been hit by COVID and have had games canceled are risky bets, especially the good ones, in closing out games?
Yeah.
Like do you worry about the defense getting a little tired? I mean, we don't know exactly who had COVID. A lot of it's tracing, but I worry about that a little bit because I think a lot of people with football players are like, well, he had it, he's over it, it's done. Like, I don't know, has Cam Newton suffered from COVID effects? He speaks a little bit loosely about it, but maybe he's joking. But I think he's explaining that like he hasn't really felt right since he had COVID.
I can only base this on a couple of examples that I know, but I've got a few friends who've had it, and the common theme has been after they're fine, but they're really tired.
Yep.
And the fatigue doesn't seem to go away real quickly. Now, I don't know. I haven't had it, and I don't want to get it. But we have seen, good example, this is Utah, which is, they had some problems. Finally got on the field the last 2 weeks, and were terrible in the second half of both games. So you wonder if that's, is there a connection? I don't know. But it's something to look at anyway.
Yeah. Brady's saying, what would Dave make the line? You got 2 games. What would you make the line on UNLV winning one of these final 2 games? I mean, they're looking at a 27-point favorite. Dave just said Boise can win by whatever.
They're not beating Boise.
And then they got Hawaii,
they're probably not beating Hawaii.
Which will probably turn out to be a game here in Vegas. It's supposed to be at Hawaii, but if Hawaii shuts things down, over the next week or so for travel to the islands, and they actually have to play the game here at Sam Boyd.
or it gets canceled. Because I'm not sure Hawaii. To be honest with you, I'm not sure Hawaii wants to spend the money that it would take to travel here. That's an expensive trip, and it's not going to mean a whole lot.
The other thing to consider,
if they play, Hawaii's winning. Hawaii's improving. Yeah. I had a big play in Nevada on Saturday, and it's the first big play I've lost in like a year and a half in college football. But I was way on the wrong side of that game. I was looked close in the final score. It wasn't. Hawaii completely outplayed them in the second half, and Graham was the much better coach in game. That was a very impressive performance by Hawaii.
The other thing to consider, UNLV for the next 2 games is going to play a lot of young guys, and especially at quarterback. Justin Rogers won't be available, but Doug Brumfield from Southern California showed enough. As long as he's not a disaster, he's going to get a lot of time in these last 2 games.
Yeah, if I'm the coach, I'm playing only guy. Quite honestly, I'm going to tell the seniors, thanks for your contributions. Root on your teammates. We got to get reps for the guys who are going to be here next year because this season's over.
Well, but keep in mind that we don't know what the story is yet, but this is an exempt season from an eligibility standpoint. So actually, the seniors,
that's right. I forgot about that.
The seniors you want back may have a chance to come back.
I completely forgot about that.
Which
very good point.
I have no idea what they're going to do with this roster because a lot of the seniors just are not great players. So what do? You keep them around, or is next year going to be a ground zero year again?
Probably recommend that they consider other options as a graduate transfer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's if guys don't figure in your future and they're seniors, there's not much point in keeping them around for another year. They can actually drag down the team.
I would hope the Ohio State-Michigan State line goes down this week. Either way, I'm very interested in Ohio State because I think Ohio State is looking at this like, wait, we don't have much time to sort of reverse course on these rankings. COVID has killed our season to a certain extent, getting right around the minimum games played. Ohio State is going to try to freaking bury Michigan State.
Yeah, and Michigan State doesn't throw it real well, so that might be something good for Ohio State because they're having problems with their pass defense, to put it mildly. But that's not really.
Hey, no worries against Rocky Thompson.
Well, I mean, let's face it, he's not heading for the NFL anytime soon.
No. What else? Did you have your eye on anything else this week, Dave? Florida, Tennessee is 16.5. Florida's favored. Great rivalry.
No, I mean, I played Utah at -10 today. Okay. The Oregon State quarterback got hurt at the end of the win against Oregon, and now appears that based on what the coach said, he's listed as questionable, but based on what the coach said, it's unlikely he's playing. So now you're going to have a guy who's taken 1 snap as a college quarterback. It was the game-winning snap, but all he did was run 1 yard. And they're off. It's a huge win for Oregon State. So there is a potential letdown factor. They don't throw it that well anyway. And the one thing Utah's done really well in losing their first 2 games, they are tough to run on, really tough to run on. And after blowing a 21-0 lead against Washington, I have a feeling Utah's going to be in a really bad mood for this game. I laid the 10. It's already gone to 11.5 with the quarterback news. I think this one could be a good spot for Utah.
I'll answer this one. Let It Ride 185 says, doesn't Ohio State always look to bury teams? Not this year. No. They didn't do it against Rutgers. I know that.
No.
I thought he took it easy. He took it easy on Rutgers last quarter and a half, and I'm not sure. I think they let off the gas pedal from a concentration standpoint against Indiana.
I want to see what happens there. To me, it's one of them. I don't think I'll bet it. But Penn State, Rutgers, I mean, I know Penn State got a win, but I'm not sure. The interest level here, to me, is going to be more on the Rutgers side. And if Penn State comes in real flat, this is a nothing game for Penn State. This game means absolutely nothing to Penn State. That's a scary. I know they've got way more talent than Rutgers, but the team that wants it more, I sometimes will just go on that.
Rutgers may get killed. They may freeze in the headlights, but I can tell you this game means a lot to them.
Oh, you kidding?
One, because they traditionally get hammered by Penn State, and the other thing is they got to protect their own recruiting ground. The dream for Rutgers fans like myself would be Penn State never fucking wins a recruiting battle in New Jersey ever again. I know that's not going to happen, especially in South Jersey, but they'll be fired up. That was a good win the other day against Purdue. You know, they were actually
a real nice win.
They were actually down their starting quarterback, and they went to their backup, who just has no mobility and gets a little too aggressive, but he can throw the ball. And they mixed it between him and a guy. Every time this guy Johnny Langen's on the field, they're going to run, and they switch back and forth, and it actually worked. And they played good physical football. So
honestly,
they're ready. But I do believe Franklin does know year in and year out, because he does the same thing to Maryland, because that's another key recruiting ground. Every year, Franklin wants to smoke Maryland and Rutgers to make sure that they stay at the bottom of the league, and that Penn State can go into those states and clean up.
He's 0-1 in that so far, because Maryland went in and kicked their teeth in.
Yep.
So it's not going well for Penn State. And I think there's a lot of people outside of Penn State fans who are probably pretty happy about that. Penn State's not they're no longer one of the most popular teams in the country. Let's put it that way.
Nah. I mean, I think in some ways Paterno was a jerk off. Obviously, when you tie it to the Sandusky thing, but Franklin's really a jerk off. So he's not a well-liked guy.
And it's not a defense of Paterno. It's never going to be a defense of Paterno, but he was so old. He was completely out of touch. And I have always wondered if he actually understood the gravity of what was taking place there. I think he was kind of serious when he thought it was just guys fooling around.
Oh yeah.
He just didn't get it. He didn't get it at all. And that's sometimes what happens when you've got a guy in his mid-80s coaching guys, who are just out of adolescence. They have the generation gap. It's not a generation gap. It's a 3-generation gap. It's two different worlds. And I'm not defending what took place by any means, but I always kind of gave him a little bit of a pass, as he's just in that he didn't get it at all.
Yeah. Yes, Fro-do. It's live. Mr. Nuts. Yes, it's interactive. I will take the bait from Truth from Duluth. I think this is going to change at some point. So I can tell you this. Jonathan Taylor wouldn't have landed at Wisconsin if Schiano had been coach at the time. So
I agree with that.
Jonathan Taylor actually committed to Rutgers and then got flipped, and I don't blame him, because the run of Rutgers coaches was just fucking terrible. So, but we'll see.
Schiano's going to get better.
God damn you, Ron Dane!
Schiano's going to get better players. He'll also get some of the guys who aren't quite good enough to play at Florida, I'm not even going to say Florida State anymore, because Florida State's got enough problems of their own. But the Florida schools, he can get guys who would otherwise go to FIU or Florida Atlantic or even UCF. I think they'll go to a Big Ten school with Schiano there, because, it's still the Big Ten. He's going to improve that program. I think Rutgers will be a program that within 2 to 3 years will be not a spectacular winning program, but I think they're going to be good enough to be a bowl contender every year with Schiano if he stays, and I think he's going to stay. I think they can get to 6 or 7 wins on a regular basis with him. He's a great coach, and at the college level, and I think he's going to do well there.
Last one. Will Saban try to just freaking destroy Orgeron? If I were Saban, that stupid speech that Orgeron gave last year where he was shitting on Alabama, be careful, dude. You've done it for 1 or 2 years. Saban's done it forever. And now you're in a weak position. Now you're a wounded animal. He may just have Mac Jones throw all over the freaking field.
Oh, I think Alabama, if Alabama gets a chance to win by 40, they're going to win by 41. Okay, I think this is one where I wouldn't be taking the points. Let's put it that way.
Pay off the alums for supporting the program.
And Saban doesn't come across as an emotional guy. I mean, he's the worst actor in the history of commercials.
Yeah. Oh God, the Affleck commercial.
Just terrible.
Yeah.
But
you know I can't give you a jacket. Come on now.
But I'll guarantee you he's going to have his team fired up for this game.
All right, Dave, I appreciate you stepping up on a Monday. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We're back tomorrow with the crew of Alex Crawford and and Allie. We'll get Adam in sometime later in the week. We got our legal podcast. Petro's back, so we appreciate you sticking with us. We took a couple days off at the end of the week last week. So, and Casey Chief, thank you. Oh, no doubt. Dak chunky soup commercials over Saban? Oh, for sure. No, Dak's pretty solid. All right, Pickle Gamer. We'll see you later. Dave, what do you got coming up this week on Wager Talk?
I don't know yet. I only posted the one game, and that was the game I talked about. So, but I'll have more.
All right. Good deal. Good stuff on, I almost said Katie Nida, Sarah